Welcome back to the Sustainable Creator Podcast. I'm Jo.
I'm Lyndon.
We're business coaches for creatives, and today we're going to be talking about content routines. If you have been feeling stuck with your content, not quite sure how to post consistently lately, this episode was created with you in mind. We're going to talk through what is a content routine and some ways that we see this working well, or ideas that you can take and run with, or to get some other ideas flowing for yourself, so that hopefully by the end of this, you will have a better idea of how you can be posting consistently in a way that makes sense for you and your business, and that you can stick with. That's the goal. So why don't we start with, what is a content routine?
So the idea of a content routine, like a lot of people talk about content pillars, they talk about content plans, and one of the things that we have been talking about a lot recently with our clients is the idea of a routine is just something that happens on a consistent basis that you don't really have to think about. And so instead of having to build a huge plan or put a ton of stress on it, it's the idea of how do we just make this consistent so it's part of a habit, and you're habit stacking following the classic atomic habits principle of just like add things into things you're already doing. And now it's part of a routine. You do it automatically. You don't overthink it. And your brain is now collecting ideas for the next time you hit that content routine spot.
Yeah.
This is going to take a little bit of a turn though, because before you can build a good content routine, the place that a lot of people actually get stuck is, what am I actually posting about? And when I was growing up, there was a meme of an iceberg that was like the classic of like, this is what's above the surface and this is what's below the surface. And if you think about content, your business is the iceberg, but the content is just the part above the surface. And what's keeping that above the surface is everything below. And so you kind of need to have a decent bit of clarity on what is the parts of your business that you actually need to talk about, that your potential clients actually need to know, and the things that are actually going to help them buy things. Because at the end of the day, you're running a business and you want to make sales. You don't want to make friends. And that's just kind of how it is. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time here at the beginning talking about what are some of those things that set you up so that once you build your content routine, it works really well.
Yeah. So before we zoom in, let's zoom out and talk about, what do you need? There's three main things to keep in mind here. First, what is the goal of your content? Another way to think about this is, how do you want people to feel? What do you want the outcome to be? When someone comes across your content, what is the end goal? You know, if you've ever read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's, have the end in mind, right? And so what is the goal with your content? Where do you want people to be led to because of that? Second, what is the action that you're optimizing for? Do you want them to start a conversation with you in DMs? Do you want them to hop on a call, like a discovery call? Do you want them to immediately buy your offer? If so, which offer is that? So what is the action that they are taking that your content is not convincing, but like encouraging them to do? And then
I think of an interesting like vetting function of this that I've started thinking about is like, when I land on someone's new profile that I haven't seen before, do I know in the first like minute or two what they actually are selling or what they want me to do? And there's a shocking number of accounts that I have to intentionally go looking of like, what's the call to action here, or what are you selling? Because it's, people don't want to be pushy, but at the same time, like, people that want to work with you are looking for the next step.
Yes. So the third thing here is, what are 1 to 2 things that you want people to remember about you, which that kind of ties into this too. Is what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to think of when they think of you? What do you want them to remember about you or your offers? That can start to tie into your unique differentiators. It can tie into how clear you are about your client persona. Being really crystal clear on those details can tie into this. But at a broad point of view, just take a moment, brain dump your answers to all 3 of those questions. I'll recap them real quick. What is the goal of your content? Where do you want people to end up because of your content? 2, what is the action you want them to take from your content? And 3, what are 1 to 2 things that you want people to remember about you because of your content? So go ahead and just pause this real quick, answer those 3 questions, and then press play, and we'll keep going. Okay.
The second part of this is, we've now said who a couple times. That who is actually pretty important. And if you have been around and seen marketing advice on the internet, there's like a common phrase of like, if you create for everyone, you create for no one. And if you create for one, it applies to everyone. And it's a very like interesting framework of like, if you try and be really general in what you are creating, it's hard for people to be relatable. And if I think about our own business, an example of this, if we went really broad and said, we're coaches for businesses that are scaling, in theory, that sounds pretty close until I start thinking about what are the topics we would talk about. And if we take like a simple one that a lot of people talk about is like, how do I find more clients? So if we were to make a piece of content about businesses scaling, would we be talking about ads? Because that's pretty common for course creators. Are we talking about organic? Because that's pretty common for solopreneurs.
Yeah.
Like trade shows, brand partnerships. Like there's so many different business types that are scaling. So it's hard for us to be specific and relatable if our niche isn't specific.
Which ironically, none of those things are things we talk about, or, like ads is not our thing. We have people in our network who are fantastic at ads. So if that's something you need, hit us up, we'll connect you. But it's interesting. We actually did this exercise for ourselves this morning. We got a refresher course on what does it look like to get super specific on this. So to narrow in on what does a specific version look like for that? Let's say we move away from simply saying scaling and we get much more granular and we say it's business to business, so B2B service providers who have a creative business, they are scaling. But the topic itself is, to dig even deeper, is how to build a sales funnel that converts high ticket ongoing clients. Because that is much more specific, we are able to help them that much more. And at the end of the day, sales is a service. The reason that we get so sticky about sales is because we've unfortunately experienced the dark side of it. I mean, case in point, we have had multiple solicitors this week that were like, go away. We don't want to buy what you're selling. We don't need that, right? So we've all experienced a version of being sold to that we don't appreciate or enjoy, which is why there's a big block for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, sales is a service. And when you believe in what you do and you're very clear on who you want to and are able to work with, and that middle ground of where you serve them really well, sales takes on a very different form. And so that's why it's so important to get specific on this. And I would be really curious to hear what comes up for you guys too.
Once you've gotten pretty specific on the like narrow people that you are serving and what your goal is in posting, the question is, if someone is going to be buying from you, what is the place where they are at that you can speak to so that they see themselves in your content? Because at the end of the day, people are going to make a purchasing decision based on a need that they have, they currently feel, or a problem that they are trying to solve. And one of my favorite frames that I've been thinking about this summer is the idea of a crossroads. Or most people ask for help when they are in a place where they need to make a decision, when they are presented with a couple options, or they are just trying to figure out what their next move is. And so if you think about the idea of crossroads, or where are people right before they purchase something like what you are offering, that is a really great position that you now start pointing your content towards, because you have a goal of what your content is doing for your business. You know exactly who this person is. And now you are identifying what are the topics that will land and be super relatable to this set of people so that you can then drive them towards what you are trying to sell. What does that look like specifically in examples? We did this about a month ago when we were figuring out what our crossroads were. And when we think about the type of things or places that people are in as our crossroads, is they're launching new offers or building out their offer ecosystem. Things are changing in their business, or the old way of selling isn't working anymore and they need new processes. It might be a systems or processes overhaul in their business that they're looking for a coach or someone to guide them through that process. Or they're in a place where they're at a capacity constraint and they're asking the question, do I hire a team, or what are my other options here if they're going the agency route? Or even some of this is, I'm running a lot of different offers and is it time to shut down this one even though it's making money because my passions are over here now? And how do I make that business model make sense? And some of those are like fairly specific to us and the conversations that we have with our coaching clients. But for you, as you're thinking about this, for the narrow person that is your ideal client, what are the crossroads or questions that are keeping them up at night that you can then start creating content for? And you can position your content as a guide for them. Or I like to think about, can you give them a little win so that they see a win from your content and now they come back to you, they remember what you're good at, and they ask you to solve their bigger problem. If you think about this podcast, this is a little win that we're creating for our audience because we are solving the how do I consistently post content question that's not necessarily inside of our crossroads, but it's right on the fringes of our crossroads because if you're launching a new offer, you have to have consistent content for that. And so we can create a little win that people see here that then drives them towards a bigger offer investment with us.
Right. And for you, that could be a number of things. It could be a lead magnet. It could be a masterclass. It could be a series that you do on Instagram. The format and the type all comes back to much of what we've talked about, earlier on in this conversation. What is the end goal? Who are you speaking to? What would they appreciate consuming? And also, what is your own capacity? Taking all these factors into consideration will allow you to know what little wins you can share that help them. So that segues very nicely into, well, from there, what does your dream client need to know in order to confidently invest in you? Because it's one thing to know what your goal is and who you're speaking to in the crossroads. You still need to know how to help them cross that bridge and be confident to make that purchase. So there's 3 things to keep in mind here that help with this. 1, they need to know that they can trust you and that you know what you're talking about. That goes into the credibility bucket. And so finding ways to share client feedback and your own experience and the ways that you have learned and put in the work yourself, like those are all examples of credibility that you can share. The second one is that knowing that you understand them and their problems. That's relatability. At our core, we are humans who want to connect with each other. And when we feel seen and understood by someone else, that goes a long way. When we know that they are credible to help us with whatever that crossroads is that we are at, that makes us feel confident in investing in them. So you do need both of those things, but there's also a third component, and that is knowing that your offer is a good investment. That's ROI, which is the one that we most commonly think of whenever we're talking about helping assure people that it's worth investing in you. All of our minds always go to ROI, but don't forget about the relatability factor and credibility piece as well. Like those play into it just as much. And when you have pieces on all 3 of those categories, that is what will really help your clients know that they are able to confidently invest in you.
I think the one footnote that I will add on this, because it's a question that we frequently get when we say like, oh, you should be posting about the ROI of your offer. And people are like, I don't have hard numbers on how much they sold once they invested in me. And the thing that we have learned doing our own market research with potential customers, having conversations, is oftentimes people don't necessarily only use dollars as their ROI metric. Sometimes they're making an investment because they want to spend more time with their kids. And so they're doing a capacity metric, or maybe they just want to feel organized, or they are measuring of like, oh, I have a plan that I can now do this, or I am now showing up as a trusted authority in my peer group. And that's how they are measuring their ROI. And so being specific for your specific dream clientele, maybe ask some of them, how are you measuring the ROI of this investment?
Yeah.
And I would hazard a guess that half of them may not say dollars. They might say something very different.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so to start wrapping up.
And so I started with an analogy of an iceberg. I'm going to use a different one. Now that we've kind of figured out all of the things that are below the surface, when you think about building a business, I have recently been thinking about going to the gym and building fitness. And that also has routines. Like for people that see results in like physical fitness, it's consistent routines and you rotate through different types of exercises. Maybe one day you do cardio, maybe one day you do strength training, and maybe you have some flexibility routines that you go through. And as you get more comfortable, you find the different routines that work really well for you. And what works for you doesn't necessarily work for someone else that is exactly the same as you. And so as you think about those types of routines, you can also think about for yourself, what is the content routines that hit those points that you need to of credibility, relatability, and ROI, but at the same time, it fits for you and your clientele how they are making decisions.
Yeah, so we're going to give you guys a few different examples to get some ideas running for you. The first one is having labeled days, so set days of the week that are reserved for different content pieces or topics. To put this into an example for you, let's say that Monday you're doing a news reporting style. If you're like, I'm just going to use the example of you are a content manager. Maybe you're doing updates on content updates that you need to know about every week, and that happens on Monday. Tuesday could be client testimonials. You're sharing client case studies or client wins.
Screenshots from DM conversations where you break down the problems you were solving, things like that.
Yeah. Wednesday could be an educational breakdown. Maybe you are teaching someone a content strategy or tip that they don't know or that has come up a lot with your own clients that you want to, again, that's a little win that you could give people so they can see what it's like working with you. So Thursday, maybe that looks like a behind the scenes walkthrough of a client project. That could also be your onboarding system or what people expect when they work with you. What are all the different stages of the process? And then let's say Friday is more on the personal side. It could be a photo dump from your week, which can include business things, what happened behind the scenes, what book were you reading, what were the different things that happened throughout the week that didn't make it online. So that's the first example.
And that type of like daily scheduled routines is if you are the type of business that creates content on the day or the day before that it goes live, like that works pretty well because you just have a consistent, like it's easy to know of like, oh, I'm going to create this because it goes up and this is the type of content I'm creating today. I don't have to overthink it. Mm-hmm. If you're a type that batches your content a little bit further out, maybe something like a quota type routine where it's for every 6 pieces of content that go up, I'm going to allot a certain number of these to different types. And this could be that like of every 6, or if you're thinking Instagram specifically, the first 2 rows, like, so in every 2 rows, there should be one of those is something personal. Maybe it's a photo dump. Maybe like we talked about this in like the label days. Maybe 2 of those are client project specific. And this could be like subparts of projects of like you built this specific section on a page if you're a web designer and you really like that. And so you're showing micro projects. Or it could be like 3 of those 6 posts are talking head because you're building authority for yourself and you want people to trust you. And so you're showing your face more on feed. And so you want roughly half of your posts to be your face being seen. And that could be educational. That could be reacting to trends. That could be a story time where you're telling something face to cam. And those are a lot easier to batch because you now have a quota because you roughly know in every 6 posts, I'm going to have 1 of these, 2 of those, and 3 of that type. And then you can just build that out a couple weeks in advance if you want to do that.
Yeah. And then the third bucket is having your go-to formats. So if you operate well where you know that you love green screens, you love sharing your car thoughts spontaneously, you love sharing day in the lives that goes into founder mode and all the aspects of running a business, and you can hide the vegetables of like what your area of expertise is in the middle of that video. So those things, let's say those are the content pieces that you really enjoy creating. Maybe the way you create a content routine is just relying on your go-to formats and giving yourself permission to be able to batch those either in the moment, if that is how you roll, or setting aside an afternoon, a day a week, or, once a month, you just block a couple of hours to batch out all of your brain dumps, whatever works for you. That could be a really good way too of having some consistency in your content, giving yourself your own version of a routine so that it goes all the way back to, what people can expect from you and that familiarity piece that your content plays a role in as well.
So whether you use any one of these, what this allows is once you know the routines and the types of things that you are going to be creating, your brain will now start collecting ideas for this. Because whether you're doing like Monday specifically things or you like doing green screens, as you start seeing things or you have conversations or you're talking to your clients, things will start popping up is like, as you build this routine, it's like, oh, this is a perfect piece of content. I'll take a screenshot of this. And now it's just in my queue of next time I'm doing this format or this day. I'm just ready to go. And I don't have to like boil the ocean for ideas every time I want to create content, because you just have a running notes tab on your phone of like, for this type, I'm doing these ideas. For this, I have these ideas. And you can just pull from a growing list. And by systemizing, you actually give yourself more creativity inside of categories. Mm-hmm. And that's the goal here, by knowing the goal, knowing the people, knowing the crossroads, and really what you are asking them to do inside of certain containers.
Yeah. If you guys had any other thoughts that popped up from listening to this, or questions, things that you want to learn about, please send them to us on Instagram. We find that really, really valuable, and it helps us plan future episodes. So please don't be shy. Tell us what other ideas you would like to learn from us on. And if this brought up any like extra questions that you had around either content or anything else, we're all ears. Thank you guys for listening. I hope that this planted some seeds, and we are excited to hear what came up for you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. That would make our entire day. We love reading that. I will occasionally go and just see if there's a new one. So I'm always on the lookout. Thank you for those of you who have. Seriously, it means so, so much. And thank you guys for listening. We hope that you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.